Pinball Randy here, and today's video is going to be a little bit of a long one. I'm on a road trip headed to Virginia to work on a couple of pinball machines for a gentleman, and I thought I would take some of this time to answer a question that I get asked on a regular basis, and that is, how did I get started in pinball repair? It's kind of a long story, so sit back, buckle up, and bear with me. I was always an inquisitive child. I had this thirst for knowledge. Whenever I locked onto a subject, I had to know everything about it. Later in life, we now know that that's because I have ADHD and I hyper-focus. However, that's what led me down this road initially. So when I was about 5 years old, my mom and her husband bought a bar. They opened a bar. And when they did, they bought me a brand new video game. It was a Midway Gorf cocktail cabinet. Now, these are the ones that you used to sit down at. They had usually a chair at each side of it, one on the front and one at the back, and the screen would flip between the two players when it was each other's turn. It would rotate, right, 180 degrees. So they bought me Midway Gorf, and I absolutely loved this thing, and it got me absolutely addicted to video games. And then fast forward a couple of years, we got our first indoor mall called Foothills Mall. And Foothills Mall had two arcades in it. One of them was Showbiz Pizza, and the other one was Take 10. And Take 10 was the holy grail of arcades. It had everything you could imagine in there. And for a little boy in the 80s, it was heaven. And so I spent all of my time in there. And every time I could come up with any kind of cash at all, I was headed to Take 10. And Take 10 was ran by a fairly large man named Tommy. And I used to follow Tommy around like a lost puppy dog, because he had the keys to the kingdom, and he was always opening these machines up and working on them, and I found that absolutely fascinating. And so I had to learn everything there was to learn about it, and I was always asking him questions. And Tommy was a good soul. Most adults at the time would have probably told me to piss off, but Tommy realized that I had this thirst for knowledge, and he wanted to feed it. And so Tommy would tell me what he was doing, and he would explain to me why he was doing it. And then as time went on, a couple of years later, he's teaching me to read schematics and how to use a soldering iron and how to use a multimeter and things like that. Kind of laying the basis for where we are now. So fast forward a few years, it's 1989, summer of 1989, and we got a brand new Elvira and the Party Monsters. And I still remember to this day unboxing that machine in the arcade and standing it up at the very first slot as you entered the arcade from the mall. It was right there on the left, and it was the first machine you'd see. And fast forward a couple of months, it's around September or October, the machine breaks down, one of the flippers stopped working. And Tommy decided on that pinball machine that it was time for me to do my first board repair. He knew what was wrong, he knew how to fix it, he told me what to do, what to check for, gave me the parts, and set me on my way. So I went, pulled the board out of it, did the repair, put it back together, and it worked. I've been hooked ever since. That was my first pinball machine that I ever repaired, and my first board repair that I ever did. In the years that followed, I would buy and sell pinball machines from time to time. I'd buy them broken, fix them up, sell them. And then I went into my IT career. And I spent about 30 years as an IT engineer. And towards the end of it, I was really kind of tired of working in IT. Now, I do still pick up contracts from time to time because the pay's really nice, and usually on contracts I don't have to do much work. However, I was getting kind of tired of doing IT work, and I had been playing in pinball tournaments locally for a while, something that I wish I still did, but I just don't have the time anymore. This is what happens when you turn your hobbies into a job. But I was playing in pinball tournaments, and folks there all knew that I fixed and sold pinball machines from time to time. We had a guy in the tournaments who was a good friend of mine, Andy, and Andy was the local Pinball Tech. But one day, Andy went into the hospital, and they diagnosed him with leukemia, and he never came out, and we were all lost. But in the weeks and months that followed, folks needed their pinball machines fixed, and they knew that I knew how, so they started reaching out to me, and I started fixing them for other people, and realized that I really enjoyed it. I enjoy seeing the smiles on people's faces when their machine works again, especially when it's a machine that hasn't worked in a long time, or it's one that has deep sentimental value. But I loved seeing the joy in their faces, so I kind of talked to my wife, and we decided that, we'd make a go at it, see what happens, and here I am. It's been a great 6 years so far. I'm not done by any means. We've got some plans in the future that might take this show on the road in a few years, but we'll see what happens. However, it has been just absolutely amazing. I get to meet people from all walks of life. I still don't know everything about pinball repair. I learn more all the time, but I enjoy it tremendously. Some things I don't enjoy. Drop targets suck. Drop targets and pop bumpers. Rebuilding those suck. But for the most part, the job is a lot of fun, and you get to meet a lot of interesting people. And so that's pretty much how I became Pinball Randy. However, the Elvira machine that I mentioned, fun thing about this job is people call me all the time wanting me to buy their pinball machines. And I love buying pinball machines. And so one day I got a phone call from this lady, and she said, "Hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy an Elvira pinball machine?" And I said, "Well, I'll come take a look at it." And she gave me her address, and I drove there. And she literally lived just down the street from the mall. And I get to her house, and this Elvira pinball machine is sitting in a breezeway. It's faded from the sun. The decals are peeling off the cabinet. But it powers on, and it mostly works. Everything is dragging, slow. It's been WD-40'd at some point. It's been out in the elements. It's just not running well. But I saw a sticker on the door that said, "If you have any issues, see the Take 10 attendant." And I knew at that moment that this was my table. And she did too, because my poker face sucks. So immediately she's like, "Okay, well, this guy wants the table. He's going to pay for it." And she hits me with "I want $4,500. Because she had looked it up online. And at the time, Elvira and the Party Monsters was selling for about $4,500. I explained to her that, look, that's a restored, working, good shape machine, and yours is, no offense, trashed. And it needs at the very least, $2,000 worth of work done to it to replace some very hard to find parts. And so she took that number and she ran with it, and she said, "Well, it's not leaving my house for less than $2,500. It left her house. That's still the most I've paid for a pinball machine that needed work ever. And I bought my wife and Adam's family. But anyway, so I bought it, and I put a $10,000 restoration on it, and it lives in my shop, and it is absolutely beautiful. And I have turned down 15 grand cash for it. Yes, I am insane. But there's the whole story, mostly, on how I became a Pinball Tech. I hope you've enjoyed it, and stay tuned, and once I get on site, we'll have some more videos. We'll see you later.